Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I'm so excited to learn from what you have to say. AAPI Youth Rising has looked up to healthier generation for a long time, and we appreciate your partnership through the years, and I'm excited to learn from Sarah, who's in the business world. So thanks again, and I'm excited for the talk. Today, as our third episode, I'm conducting a joint interview with Sarah Hartono, co-founder and COO of Milu, a company that creates kits for children to develop emotional skills and self-confidence, and Daniel Hatcher, Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at Alliance for a Healthier Generation, an organization promoting equitable youth well-being and health. Sarah and Daniel, for starters, could you talk a little bit more about your connection and background in the API community? And for Daniel, thank you for your partnership. Could you also talk a little bit about how you first heard of AAPI Youth Rising and how you helped spread our educational materials?
For sure. Yeah, I'm happy to start. And then Sarah, like maybe we could go back and forth. So first of all, super happy to be here. And Healthier Generation just really appreciates everything that API Youth Rising is doing to support young people out there. I'm trying to remember when we first got connected. I think it came through Act to Change, actually. I met one of the board members, and then we were just talking about Healthier Generation's desire to support all kids and support spaces of inclusion and belonging. And Nancy, I think it was like, oh, you need to get in touch with Mina and the students at API Youth Rising. So, like all good things, it comes from like people to people. Chatting with each other. So I think that's the origin story. I can't remember how many years now, maybe 4 or 5. Um, and then Sarah, like I feel like the universe just like pushed us together. We met
100%.
somewhere, but I'm just such a super fan of Milieu now. So yeah, Sarah, you should take it from here and talk.
No, so grateful. Thanks, Daniel and Max, for bringing us on. We actually met, I think we really connected Daniel through affirmation cards at a conference where literally 5 minutes before Daniel's session, he is such a co-creator. He was like, "Hey, Sarah, I want to include your affirmation cards in my session right now." And I was like, "You know what? Daniel is such a rock star. Whatever he does, I trust him completely." And so we just went with the flow. And I think when I think of Daniel, that is a word that comes to mind is the word flow. Doesn't matter what kind of day it is, we're gonna flow through it together. And so yeah, he incorporated the cards flawlessly. And I think from there we really started to be like, okay, what are other ways we could be creative and impact youth and families and communities together? So that was epic.
Yeah. Never turn down someone who's handing you an affirmation card and says, "Hey, pick one." And then you read it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I think that's like one of the lessons I learned um, from Sarah is just like, you never know who you're going to connect with and just like
Mm.
be open to it and then see where it flows.
Mhm. And then can you both of you kind of like talk about how like your partnership has kind of like developed over the years and like what you've learned from each other being in like different like sectors or different fields?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example of something that I'm super proud of. Just a few weeks ago, we teamed up at one of the biggest education conferences in the country called Boost Collaborative. And we teamed up to create a conference Zen Den wellness space. So it was the first time this conference had ever dedicated a room where any of their 3,000 attendees could go and just decompress and relax and feel a sense of grounding.
Mm.
So we were able to team up on that, and it was folks loved it, and um, yeah, I'm just excited to see other places where we can replicate that. So um, that's one of my favorite collabs we've had
Yes.
recently.
No, yeah. And I think on that note, at that same conference, two events, we just kept on seeing each other and running into each other. One was a duck relay race where we dressed up as fruits and vegetables and then raced in a relay race format in a pool. That was epic. And our team was called Fresh Force, of course, because all the produce. And really, I think that reminded me of, man, we can really put ourselves out there and I think one of the things I had wrestled with earlier this year that Daniel was encouraging me was actually imposter syndrome. But Daniel always encourages others and puts opportunities in front of us to really shine, even if it's in silly ways. And what I love about that was it's really mission minded for the kids, and raising money for them. And then the second one was we got to end that week with some matcha mindfulness and him just being down, after a tiring week, I'm sure, but being able to create space to take care of ourselves. I think that's really how we're going to inspire the next generation is when we can be present with ourselves to then pour into others. And so I think just such great leadership that I'm learning from Daniel and everyone in the industry, even if we're in different but similar adjacent spaces.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. And I think like you were talking about kind of like the silliness, like fun edge of like this. Could you kind of like explain how like, a lot of like the activism work or advocacy work is sometimes really serious? Can you talk about kind of how we can blend those two and kind of like find that middle ground and support youth and kind of like finding that middle ground and having fun in their lives as well?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the key things I try and tell educators around the country. I think I've been to like 12 states this year giving workshops, and like the core theme is the importance of playfulness and
Mm,
supporting yourself. Because the world feels heavy, the world is heavy as an adult, and how what that looks like for a young person is even more intense. So if
yeah.
we can train educators and encourage all adults out there to find these moments of playfulness, levity, silliness, like just to support their own mental health, but then also to come together. Like I was wearing a pineapple costume, Sarah was wearing an orange costume, our friend Nancy was wearing a corn costume, and our friend Tara was wearing a lettuce costume in front of tons and tons of people and just cheering each other on for this relay race. Like those moments, like bind you together and just like make you feel like you're not alone. And like, if we can team up and support each other to do fun things, then you've got people there to call on when when
Mhm.
times get really stressful.
Yeah.
So I think playfulness, especially adults, playfulness is the way.
Yeah. And I think what I love about what Daniel's saying is, and what I'm hearing is, we need to create safety in order to have growth. Because in the work that we do in advocacy, we're always looking forward and we're looking to make change. But we also need to create safety where people can actually learn when they feel safe, when their fight or flight is not activated, you know? And when we can be present, that's where the real ideas, the real collaboration, the authenticity that can really come out when we first feel safe. Then we push one another to grow and champion one another in community and tackle problems together.
Yeah, for sure. Great responses. So I'm going to move on to like some of like the individual questions and I'll bounce back between you two. We'll start with Daniel. How's like healthier generation kind of like evolved in recent years and months? And how's like healthier generation kind of like supported API youth, especially during like the times of like the surge in hate crimes and like anti-Asian rhetoric?
So our work, the core of Healthier Generations work is to provide support to schools and community-based organizations across the country. We work with about 56,000 schools and organizations. And our goal really is to have folks know where they can go to get simple tools and resources to support physical activity, nutrition, mental health, staff well-being, family, and community engagement. Our work has definitely evolved over the years to be more digital. So we have an online action center where anyone in the country can go get a free login and then search for resources to help them connect to any of those topic areas. And then my role in particular is to find amazing partners like Sarah and Milieu to say, hey, like if you're looking for something specific around this topic area, check out what my friends are doing. Or if you're a school district in California, like check out, they might even be able to come in and do a training for you all. So our work is partner centric and has only grown
Mhm.
to incorporate more partner organizations that we can team up with just to make it easier for folks out there. And then on the side of supporting young people and feeling safe and included, especially young people from the Asian American Pacific Islander communities. We want to encourage teachers and educators just to promote inclusion and belonging for everybody and to ensure that they have resources, simple resources they can use in their day to create a welcoming space. So whether that's acknowledging all young people by their name and learning their name and the pronunciation of their name, or maybe that's using the one day of AAPI history that AP Rising has. um, so whatever that is, whatever a teacher has in their capability to create a healthy, safe space is really important for us. And again, we just want to keep training and educating folks to find those resources out there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great response. And kind of like in the same vein, like Sarah, like we talk about like belonging as kind of like the key to like, feeling safe in their own bodies and safe in their communities. And how does like milieu and your play kits kind of help build emotional resilience and self-confidence in the context of like API cultural complexity and like societal expectations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Milieu, we really believe in three pillars towards healthy development: identity, community, and culture. When we are confident in who we are, we can team up together with others in community and make an impact on culture. And so I really think that what that starts with, to answer your question, is that first one, identity. When we know who we are, we can actually view these as superpowers. So when there are multiple cultures that we're dealing with, like for myself, I grew up in America, but I also grew up going to Indonesia because that's where a lot of my family is. And so actually reframing these multiple contexts and different maybe being labeled as different is actually a superpower. Wait, actually, this is something that makes me a better human being because I can have more empathy. I can understand other people's perspectives more. I've seen a culture different than the primary one that I'm usually surrounded with. And so, really, through Milieu, we want to have those kind of light bulb moments where identity can be formed through reframing. What most people may see as something to tear us down by or a negative stereotype, we're actually, wait, what are the good things about this? And how can I utilize this to strengthen who I am, to actually contribute my voice to the table, to actually team up with others who have a different perspective than me and work together to solve these problems? I think some of the core principles that we really stick to is also neuroplasticity and play therapy. Neuroplasticity being that we can literally change the way that our brains are wired. And so when we've been told certain stereotypes or that we have to play into a model minority kind of role, as myself as an Asian American, I can actually reframe that and strengthen my neural pathways to think a different way. And so I think those are some of there's so much more science behind it that we can definitely dive into another time. But neuroplasticity and lastly, play therapy again, that we can actually engage in these topics when we feel safe, when we can go through playfulness and not just through um, the traditional education system. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then Daniel, what would you think you would want like youth and like or youth in general and like API youth to kind of like know about like healthier generations role in like today's country, and how do you think like healthier generation can serve as like a shield against like hate and like, kind of like be a powerful tool for belonging in communities?
I've told Sarah this many times, but I'm in the phase of my career where I'm trying to like not leave anything on the table, put all chips in to support young people. So I guess my advice would be find mentors, find folks who are willing to bring you to tables, bring more chairs to the table so you can sit down, change the way the table looks so that you can bring more teammates there because we need young people's voices. In education. We need young people to have dreams to be policymakers, to be funders, to run philanthropy. Like there's just so much energy and enthusiasm that we can tap into, and it's so much more fun. Like even just the time that I've gotten to know Sarah and Amelia, I feel like I always feel better after we're collaborating because we're bringing something different to the space. We represent different generations. We're on different sides of the country, um, but working together just really enriches the collective. And it's really nice to come to the conversation like we're 100% our authentic self. We feel
Mm.
seen and heard, and then we're creating really cool things together. So I just really hope anyone who listens to this podcast like finds outlets and folks that they connect with who affirm them, and you don't want to bring them into the conversations. And healthier generation, and myself, speak for myself, like 100% here to help and support. If there's any partners I've ever worked with that any young person out there wants to connect with, I am more than happy to be that bridge. I think it's, now's the time to not have any more gatekeeping, and just, unleash the power of incredible young people.
Yeah, for sure. And then Daniel, kind of like as a follow-up, what would you say like if you're like, a youth who wants to collaborate with like other youth across the country, what would you say to them and kind of like how would you encourage them to find these like collaborations and moments of opportunity to like work with each other?
For sure. Yeah, one of my favorite partner organizations is a group called YSA, Youth Service America. Incredible friend over there, Scott, who leads their partnership work. But what I love about what they do is they get young people into service learning projects and actually provide funding so that young people can bring those projects to life.
Mm.
So I would say number one, check out YSA Youth Service America, apply for one of their grants. If you need ideas, if you want to do like a health and wellness or a mental health focused project, look me up on LinkedIn or on social. I'm happy to help. But find those organizations that are actively funding youth voice, and start there, because it's way easier if there's just a little bit of money that can help support what you're trying to do. There's another great organization, NYLC, the National Youth Leadership Council, also have a lot of great resources on youth-led service learning. But again, I'm always happy to support and connect the dots if anyone wants to get linked up with other organizations.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to reach out to Daniel. And then Sarah, kind of like bouncing back to you. Can you share a little bit about how like early child development plays a role in developing like healthier minds that are like more open and accepting of diversity? We often say that like acceptance kind of like starts with like education, and how can like milieu develop those skills as well?
That's such a thoughtful question. I really think that, again, it starts with even ourselves. So when we talk about anti-bullying and stopping hate. I think also part of it is internally. Are there parts of ourselves that we need to address and make sure that we don't hate ourselves? I think as I'm growing older as an Asian American female, there are parts of my past and myself that I'm realizing to recognize as we actually, those are things, again, to love and to reframe rather than to see as a weakness or something that doesn't fit in with others. But also, too, is to be super aware, especially in early childhood, that we're formed by our milieu. So actually, that's where our name comes from. It's a person's social environment. And so when educators and parents alike are aware that a person's milieu deeply shapes them, I think we can be a lot more intentional about how we craft these spaces for young people and kids. And so, how we are intentional about our milieu at Milieu is we actually co-create every single product with the community, and we ensure that this is a diverse community that is one that is of acceptance and belonging. And so we actually ask everyone this golden question to develop any of our curriculum, which is what is one thing you know now you wish you knew when you were younger? And that way we get an intergenerational response, and we're actually able to have older generations allow we create a platform for older generations to have young people stand on their ceiling, where we don't have to relearn things that they've already gone through and learned, but actually that we get to really listen to them and co-create a better future where we actually progress, where we've learned from mistakes, where we can get back up. Because just as is inevitable, so is joy. And so I really believe that when we co-create all of our products and we think about how to develop healthier minds and we think about that milieu we're forming young people in, That's how we can be more open and diverse, is when we listen to one another, when we're not quick to speak, but actually really quick to hear what other people have to say, and then formulate our thoughts and be really strategic and long-term sustainable about our approach, which is a huge thing that I learned from Daniel, is how to be sustainable in the initiatives that we're forming, especially as young people. I myself, as Gen Z, I'm so down to like get out there and do stuff and crush it and grind and achieve. But I think I've been learning a lot from others in the industry that have been mentoring myself and my co-founder, Senna. There's a lot of value in taking things slow, in understanding how to really, again, listen before we just respond. And that way, the initiatives we start can last even longer and for generations. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great response. And I kind of like, I was going to ask you that question, like, what would you wish you had told, like, what would you want to say to like your younger self? So that's like a great way to kind of like go into the next segment.
Mm. Yeah. For myself, I think it's actually one of the core kit themes that we have is I wish I didn't give in to peer pressure and change myself to fit in with others. I wish I embraced more of that uniqueness. I think growing up, again, I think I'm realizing now as I'm older, as an Asian American female, as someone that lived in two worlds, I was often trying to fit in with the mainstream, but I was kind of a quirky kid. Like I loved entrepreneurship. So I was like selling rock packs from in third grade from like the school playground. I would get origami boxes and put rocks in it and decorate it really nicely and sell it. Or I made an asparagus hat in fourth grade with my parents, and that was a huge memory. And so I know that growing up, I wish I got to be a bit more confident in those, and that I didn't feel like I need to shy away, but I could really battle that inner critic and be more of who I was. And I think now I'm learning more ways to be playful, to express myself, and not give in to, oh, I have to, because I'm Asian, like I need to be really good at math, and because I'm not, oh, because
Yeah,
I am a female, like I need to love pink, like I really don't. And so I think being more confident, those are just small examples, but yeah.
sure.
I love this, Sarah. I just love hearing you answer that question. Um, I think mine is similar. Like, just embrace like exactly who you are and
Mm.
your quirks and things that make you really unique. I grew up in a town of about 1,000 people in rural Kentucky, and maybe if I would go back, I would to my younger self, I would say, the world is really big. Like, there's so many cool things to explore. Like, things that feel so serious
Mm.
are actually not that big of a deal, but they felt so significant at the time. So I don't think like 12-year-old Daniel had any idea of all the cool stuff and cool people that they were going to meet. So so yeah, I would say embrace your quirks and you know just get excited because the world is huge and there's so many cool things to and people to meet.
Yeah, for sure. Great responses. And then like for both of you, I guess like doing some more joint questions, what strategies have kind of been most effective in advocating for inclusion, belonging, and like equity in your experience, like building community inside like your organizations or yeah.
A key theme of workshops and trainings I do with educators is just to start with them. If they don't feel a
Mm.
sense of belonging, if they don't have a moment to reflect on who they are, it's really hard for them to pass that on to young people. There's an activity I've been doing a lot around the country called Yourself as a Recipe. And I'll hand out little recipe cards and have folks write down what are all the ingredients that make you the incredible person you are. And it's fun to see some people will go really literal and they'll be like, I'm a cup of creativity, I'm a tablespoon of joy. And then some people will just like, did a cake, like they just drew a cake and then made a layer of the cake that represented themselves. But I think it's sitting in those moments where you can just reflect on all the incredible things that make you you. Adults do not do that enough, or if at all. And so then to ask them to create inclusive spaces for young people are really challenging because like they're even farther disconnected from what that feels like. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. Another resource I really love, a partner organization, is called Young Storytellers, and one of their activities is called I Love. And it is as simple as saying, I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute, and I want you to write down everything you love on that worksheet, on that sheet of paper. And I'll always preface and say, by the way, the first thing I typically write on there are tacos. Like it's not, it doesn't have to be really serious, but take a moment and just reflect on what you love and what you enjoy. So I think it all starts with the adults and educators and giving them space where they can feel included and welcome and proud of who they are and all their quirks too.
Yeah. And what I love, adding on to what Daniel said, because I completely agree, is that from there, I think that when you're authentic with yourself, you can be authentic with others and form those deep relationships. And you never know what your super crew is going to come up with from there. Because truly, like, if we want to be effective in advocating for inclusion and equity, like, we got to work together, you know? And like, that's the DNA of the work. And so, when we're authentic with ourselves, that allows space for others to also come in to co-create, to acknowledge differences, celebrate them, and then cook up something. And so I think even just the way that Healthier Generation moves with all their strategic partners is amazing, because that's literally doing this work.
Yeah, for sure. And then like how would you say you would say like stay grounded or hopeful in the face of like opposition for like Sarah, if there are like young API entrepreneurs out there, what advice would you give them to build like resiliency in the business world? And like for Daniel, what advice would you give like youth or API youth advocates and activists to remain strong and resolute in their fight for like a healthier community?
That's such a good question. Okay, let's go. What I love about being Asian American is that many of us have backgrounds where our parents were entrepreneurs. Whether it's starting a restaurant in Chinatown or different kind of business ventures, even if a lot of them are small businesses. But I think that acknowledging where we come from, knowing that it's in our DNA. Something I think a lot about and why I even started Milieu is that one, I want to acknowledge that generational trauma does exist, but then number two, so does generational blessing, so does generational stewarding. And so, how do I not erase the hard work and the sacrifice of the generations before me, but actually, how do I instead embrace all of that and continue that story in my own unique way? And so, I think for a lot of API entrepreneurs, many may have a similar background where even if your parents were not entrepreneurs directly, they've done a lot of sacrifice for us to be where we are today. And so, how do we think of it as, man, yes, we're dealt a hand of cards in life, but we can actually utilize that to continue generational advancement, and being able to support our communities. What I love about our generation, especially, is we don't just think about one family, but we're actually thinking community. We're not just thinking money, we're also thinking impact. And so I think that's how we can pass the baton, is thinking about how we're impacting our future generations. I think that hopeful dream, this like new American dream that I've been marinating on, I think that's really something that can give us hope as API entrepreneurs.
There, I'm just sitting in your words around generational blessings. Wow, I really love that. Um, when I think about resilience, um, actually, I'm going to quote Sarah's uh, business partner, Senna, in this. We did a matcha and mindfulness pop up a couple weeks ago, or maybe that was last week. That went really well and was super fun. But Senna had this comment that just like when making matcha, you have to warm the whisk so that the bristles in the brush don't break. I think that is the perfect analogy for us as humans as well. We have to find those things that warm up our bristles so that we don't break when things get challenging. So whether that's taking your 15 minutes to make your matcha and enjoy like every moment of getting just the right foam on top. Um, Sarah, which I'm like now, I'm like, is my daily practice. I'm like, can I get this right? Or if
So.
it's getting enough sleep, it's staying hydrated. If it's making yourself lunch and sitting down and eating your lunch without being on your phone or checking your email and just carving out that time, whatever that is for you that softens your bristles. We all have to have those practices. Again, I always go back to sleep and hydration. I think those are two of the absolute most important. Um, there's a book I really love, Tricia Hersey wrote, called Rest is Resistance. And it speaks to the importance of, if we're anyone who's doing any kind of advocacy work or advocating and supporting communities, you have to take time to rest,
Mm.
and support yourself, and just sit on your couch, sit in a chair, just like daydream. So find those moments. Don't let your bristles on your brush break.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great quote. I really enjoy matcha too, so that's like really relatable. And then before we wrap up, do you have any questions or topics you would like to speak about, or a message that you would like our youth listeners to hear about?
I'll just quote Sarah, find your super crew. I call them my health and wellness Avengers, and try and create intentional moments to get them together, um, so that we can support each other and then find ways to intersect our work. So you're not alone. Find your super crew.
Yeah. For me, I would just say don't be afraid to reach out. I think that in this day and age, it's way easier to form those connections for that super crew. I think that's how I first heard of Daniel was even through online and his social media. And now we get to work together on almost a weekly basis. And so you never know what could happen and the amazing people that you find along the journey. So
Yeah, that's great. So thank you again for sharing your time and perspective. And both of your stories are a powerful example of how API individuals and allies continue to rise and resist. I can't wait to share your stories with others, especially young people who are looking for guidance and inspiration. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you. Super glad to get to spend time together.
Yeah, for sure.
Same.
See you.